Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so pleased to say that the brand new Xbox portable console is here. It's the ROG Xbox Ally X. There are a couple of different versions. You can buy a slightly cheaper one that doesn't have the X, that doesn't have the same specifications, but for all intents and purposes, this is a big, big day because finally you can play your Xbox games on the go, right? Well, this has kind of been like a weird long time coming because obviously Windows PCs and Xbox is kind of like fused into one, and that's almost what this device kind of represents because despite the fact that it actually has the Xbox branding, this is very much a Windows 11 PC. And hopefully throughout this video, we're going to be showing you absolutely everything that it is that you need to know about this device, and of course, get gaming on it to see how it performs, because there is definitely a lot at stake here. I mean, obviously the Steam Deck has been selling very, very well for years now. Obviously we have the very own ROG Ally that this supersedes, and I've got to say, I really did like that there were definitely a few kind of like Windows features that we wanted changing with it, and that is pretty much what this is all about. It is the fusion between ROG and Microsoft to just give you a portable gaming console that in theory should fuse the best of Microsoft with the best of Asus, essentially. And I mean, the most obvious thing that you can see right off the bat is that this kind of does look like an Xbox controller that has a screen in it. That is very deliberate, and I'm not like some expert on like product IP law, but I would imagine that the kind of shape of the controller grips has been very much like an Xbox thing, and other companies can kind of get close to it but weren't exactly able to use the exact same thing as Xbox and Microsoft, whereas obviously this now has the IP, so it can do that. And I've got to say, this does feel just like an Xbox controller. I mean, obviously it's bigger, but in terms of the way that it's physically actually hitting my hands, that's pretty good. My main worry with this device, kind of just from the initial specifications, was going to be the weight of it, especially this version because it's the X, which has a bigger battery and obviously then is heavier. Initial impressions is that while it is definitely heavier than some handhelds, it doesn't feel in any way like obtrusive or just over the top. It's really quite well balanced actually, which could go a long way to making this comfortable over a prolonged period of time. And as you would probably expect, there are quite a few familiarities with this versus the previous generation of the ROG Ally. It's kind of just been improved, if you like, as I say, with Xbox. So things like the sticks and the triggers should feel a little bit more responsive, but then you've got that same kind of design language that you saw before. This is a 1080p 120Hz display. It goes up to 500 nits. I'm not sure if it actually properly supports HDR. This is something that we'll be testing, but obviously HDR on a handheld is a bit difficult anyway, because unless you're hooking it up to a power source, it's just going to drain your battery a little bit quicker. In terms of I/O, if you go for the X version, one of these is actually USB 4, whereas otherwise they're both USB 3.2 Gen 2. This X version also supports DisplayPort 2.1 over USB-C as well, which is quite cool. Not really sure you're ever going to use that, but this one does, and then the base one does not. We've got a micro SD card slot here, volume rocker, a few different LEDs, and then this power button here also has a fingerprint sensor inside it as well, which obviously just helps to keep your device nice and secure. All the buttons and sticks do seem to feel quite nice and responsive. I think it's only the D-pad that feels a little bit on the cheaper side, but not enough to be an issue. You have speakers on the left and the right of this, and when we turn this over to the back, you can see you have got another couple of buttons here that obviously you can assign in the ROG software to maybe do something Windows specific, or just be a different button for your game or macros and things. Again, all of this is going to be configurable, which is quite nice. But as I say, for a unit that is actually pretty chunky and pretty meaty, they've done a very good way of kind of disguising the weight and the form factor by using the Xbox controller handles, essentially. It works really well. Let's see what else we have inside the box though, shall we? This looks like, is that a dock? There's a bit of
cardboard.
I mean, it's eco-friendly, but is that really the best you could do? Well, helps me, because I can neatly plop this down for a second. Bizarre. And then when we go into the rest of the box, we find our manuals. And then underneath this false floor, we have our power cable. And then the other side must be a power brick that has this ROG logo on it. So definitely a collaboration between the two, but how well do they come together? Oh, and I suppose for better or worse, there isn't a USB port on the underside of this like there is on the Switch 2. So you will have to plug in up here, which is always out of the way. But if you were going to use docks and things, that could get a bit annoying. Again, that same RGB lights up here. It's good branding, but in practice, there's not really any reason to have this on. And then this is the point, look, where you see that Windows does start loading in the background. And I will be very, very clear about this. This is a pre-release model with pre-release software. And this means that the setup process for me is going to be the same as just like a normal Windows laptop. Whereas one of the things that they have massively improved with this is that you'll actually be able to use the analog sticks, and only the stuff that will be relevant to your Windows setup will actually appear in your first time setup, essentially. So it's aiming to thin it out, but it is still going to be a Windows loader, essentially.
To set up your device using a screen reader, turn on narrator by...
But let's now take this opportunity to fast forward a couple of hours, and you'll now be joining us at the stage that you will hopefully be at once you've done that setup. So there's a fingerprint sensor, as I say, on the top, and it actually is really responsive, which is good. So you don't actually gonna have to wait around, just hold the power button down, and then it will log you in, which is nice. This is the main splash screen, and this is one of the main changes that you're gonna see with this generation, with the Xbox name on the box, essentially, rather than what we saw before. So this is what is essentially called the Xbox full screen experience. So when we swipe up, this is going to be our multitasking. You've probably seen this if you've like pressed Alt and Tab on a PC before, but this is actually now specific to gaming apps. So there's a desktop mode, you can see at the bottom, you've got this Windows desktop button. If you hit that, then it will just work as if it's a normal PC, essentially, which in some instances you might want, especially if you're going to use this with a dock. You maybe are going to use this as a computer, but also a handheld, and then, you know, that's a great way of doing that. But all the time you're kind of out and about and want to use this as a handheld, you're going to want to leave it in the default Xbox full screen experience. Now, when you kind of navigate through the Xbox menus, it's obviously very heavily geared towards kind of Game Pass and everything Xbox. But having said that, when you go into your library, you can see here I've installed Civilization 7, but that is actually on Steam. So in theory, all of the games that you install, regardless of the place you get them, should actually pop up here. I'm sure there'll probably be a few exceptions, but hopefully give this a few months of updating, essentially, and it will all be there. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, it is all there, which is quite cool. So I've installed a few different games because I want to see how this is going to handle different genres. But just to sort of show you as well, if you want to stream to this device, there's a few different ways you can do this. So the game I'm actually playing at the moment, unapologetically, is this one, which is Tomb Raider 4 to 6 Remastered. And this is a game that is not Xbox Play Anywhere, which means I can only play that on the Xbox that I've bought it from. There is a PC version, but that's on Steam and it's not included in that kind of bundle. Now, most of the first-party Xbox games are going to be, so you can, in theory, play on this, play on your Xbox, cloud save, and then just kind of go from one to the other. But if you're like me and you have a game that's not actually supported, then you can open it up here, and then you can either stream it from your Xbox or play with the cloud. And then this uses Xbox's cloud service, and you can see this in real time. It doesn't actually take very long whatsoever. All of my saves that are on the cloud are here. Quick loading time, and then boom, you can see we are in our game. Obviously, this is not the most visually appealing game, but it's one I've been enjoying and one I'm going to be playing all the way through. Whoa, hang on a second. Let's interrupt our flow to talk about the most relevant sponsor spot I think we've ever done on the channel, UGREEN and their Revodok. Because look, it connects to the Ally and then appears on screen. This small little box is the key to unlocking the full power of your device, be it gaming, laptop, or otherwise. And it transforms a single USB-C into a fully fledged 14-port beast. With both HDMI and DisplayPort, you can connect multiple monitors at 4K resolution. And if you're using a single monitor with DP, it's 4K at up to a whopping 120 Hz. From here, you can charge your device up to 100 watts, connect USB-A peripherals, transfer files up to 10 gigabits a second, and unlock Ethernet networking, SD cards, and more, all from just one single upstream USB-C cable. And it's one of those things that you might not actually think about until you actually need one, but having a laptop or an ROG Ally connected up with this, and then you can obviously use it as a full computer, is fantastic. For homes with multiple users and devices, having just one single cable to connect is a real game changer. Gone are the days of fumbling around with keyboard adapters and mouse cables. Just grab a supported device, hook it up, and then crack on with your work or play. UGREEN Revodok is available on Amazon or the UGREEN web store. It's currently 30% off until October 26th, and it even comes with a free accessory hub. So learn more and check out yours today with the links down below. Once in a game, you can hit this Xbox button here, and then this is going to give you a few more options as well. Again, trying to replicate what you have on an Xbox, where it's just easy to navigate and easy to do things without necessarily having to go through any Windows bloat. So here you can access your library, you can kind of quickly select applications, you've got a few different settings. These are actually going to be the Windows 11 settings, but obviously these are shortcuts. So if you want to turn Bluetooth or airplane mode or something like that on, you can. If you want to go into the desktop mode and exit the full screen, again, you can do that. You've got social here, so if you want to like obviously talk to friends and things, it will show your status of what you're doing. You can mix your audio, you can take screenshots, capture, quite a few good things as well. And you've also got this performance tab here as well. You would previously be relying on like the ROG one to actually kind of have an overlay here, but you've got the one that's actually baked into Windows. And obviously we'll talk about specifications and things a little bit later, but it's worth bearing in mind that the VRAM and the RAM itself is going to vary depending on how you configure it, and also depending on the version that you go for. If you go for the standard Ally, you get 16 gigabytes of GDDR5, whereas if you go for the X, you get the slightly faster, well, it's actually LPP. So confusing. 24 gigabytes of LPDDR5X, and this runs faster as well at 8,000 megahertz. Probably the main window though that I think most people are going to use is of course the command center with Armory Crate, and you do have the full Armory Crate, and this will open as a full screen Xbox application as well. And here you can change like control mode, you can see real-time FPS statistics, you can use an FPS limiter to obviously get yourself better battery life. But then I think the main one really that you need to be aware of is the different profiles for the power mode, because the more power that this uses, the more the chip is going to perform, but obviously at the cost again of battery life. Let's come out of our cloud gaming mode, and then let's fire up a game, shall we? And we're going to start probably with the hardest one first, which is Doom: The Dark Ages. And it's worth noting as well that in the store, it should actually show you how well it is going to perform on these different devices. Oh, and okay, we're in. That didn't take as long as I thought it was going to. It's worth noting as well that some games you're going to have to preload the textures, which obviously on a mobile CPU is going to take a fair bit of time. But hopefully in quite a lot of games, it's going to use the Xbox feature where it will actually download some pre-compiled shaders for you, so you don't have to wait ages to actually install them yourself. And right off the bat, we're getting 15 frames a second, and obviously that is quite literally unplayable. So clearly the settings that we've got at the moment do not work. The first thing I'm going to do is go over to Armory Crate and change this to the turbo mode, which will increase the power from 17 to 25 watts. And that has made a difference, but it's hardly night and day. I think this would put some people off, to be honest, at the moment, if you opened a game and it was running like this. And then it looks as if the settings we have at the moment are medium across the board. So let's just set this to low. And then in theory, when we come out of this, yes, there you can see, that is a lot more like it. It's still not 120 FPS, but it's around about 40, 43. And because we have VRR on this, it's a lot smoother than you would kind of expect if you're used to playing on like a fixed 60 FPS monitor or something like that. So yeah, this is perfectly playable for something that is on battery that, as I say, you could take with you on the train or something like that. Not too shabby, actually. Not too shabby. And I know we are using FSR set to performance to get there, but this actually still looks pretty nice on this screen. It's a 7-inch, so it's larger than you're going to get on some other devices. But with that 1080p resolution, I've got to say actually that this is a quite nice looking display. It's a bit weird in my head that it's not OLED, because you'd think, especially if you're making this on the scale that hopefully they're going to be doing it, it would be within the realms of affordability for what is already quite an expensive device. But the actual image quality here is very good. The other thing really that we need to talk about other than just performance, and I suppose if I plug this in, you can see we're getting 45 frames a second at the moment. Is this going to increase once you have cranked it? Not massively. This has now gone into the turbo mode, which is 35 watts, but it's not like a night and day difference, which I suppose in some ways is good because you want it to perform almost as well on battery as if you have it plugged in. You are going to have to make compromises. You are going to have to use that dreaded upscaling that a lot of people really hate the idea of. But the fact is, this is a very, very heavy game, and if you didn't have technology like that, then you wouldn't be able to play it on the go at all. So it is really a case of pick your poison. Why do games have unskippable crap? Honestly, it drives me up the wall. Am I the only one that gets pissed off with these things? Surely not. Let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, here we are in Forza Horizon 5, and let's have a look. In terms of frame rate, it looks actually as if we've got a 60 FPS cap on this, which is absolutely fine. Obviously, we can remove this in just a second, but the default high settings that it's given us, look, doesn't seem to be dropping below that, which is pretty cool. So this is a really nice, smooth experience, actually. Obviously, a racing game is kind of it's different in the sense that you still need everything to be really tight, but you are relying a lot more on the timing of the sticks, I suppose. So there's still like a couple of drop frames here and there. It is, again, still running on a portable machine. It's not going to be exactly the same as it would be on a full Xbox or a full optimized PC. But I've got to say I'm pretty happy overall with how it's performing. Still around about 80, 82 frames a second or so. Very happy with the controls, really. I think it's a really well designed bit of kit. It just obviously is going to have some limitations that are still caused just by having a portable Windows device. And I think this is something that will improve over time as they get more and more optimized, but ultimately until you can get to the point where you've got a specific OS that is not full Windows, that is kind of like an Xbox OS that maybe uses like Windows kernels or things like that to function, but fundamentally has none of the bloatware whatsoever, that's when you're going to get like the proper full portable Xbox experience. But all the time, and some people are going to like this, all the time you are kind of running it as a full Windows PC, you get all of those advantages, but also some of the disadvantages as well. So there will be people watching this that have kind of never gamed on a PC before and might be thinking that's quite a lot of steps, a lot of things going on there, but that kind of just is PC gaming. So you've got these two options that you just swipe in from the bottom, and as soon as you go into the desktop, you can see you've got a full Windows 11 PC. So this is why I say if you're going to use this in a docked mode with a monitor, it's literally just a normal computer, right? So everything that you can do in Windows, you can do. It's a full version of Windows as far as I know and as far as I'm concerned. If you want to go back, then you just open up the Xbox app and you select this thing here that says Xbox full screen. But when you do so, it will say, do you want to restart for the optimized performance? And you have the same old quirks with desktop on a small touchscreen, which is that obviously some stuff is going to work really well. Other stuff that's got like small icons and things are obviously going to be harder to hit. By default, I believe if you open Steam in the non-desktop mode, then it opens in big picture, but you can still open it up like that when you're in the desktop mode. And then this is going to feel a lot more like Steam OS, so nice and easy to navigate essentially. It just has this like OpenGL layer on top, and then look, this is just like a Steam Deck, but obviously it's running on Windows. Something though that I am quite impressed with actually are the thermals and acoustics of this. Obviously this is running on battery, but where you've got the vents located at the top of the device, you've not got anything horrible sort of coming out at the back, so it's again nice and comfortable to use. But this is what it sounds like in its 25 watt mode. So it's audible just about, but definitely not a problem. Obviously, when you hook it up to mains, it gets a little bit louder, but so far, nothing annoying whatsoever. Right, okay, this being a PC-centric video, of course, we're gonna have to play a very PC-centric game on a handheld. We've done this with every single one since the Steam Deck. Let's see how this performs. Now, to be fair, this is Civ 7, which is a fair bit harder to run, actually, than Civ 6. So already, the fact that this is looking pretty good actually, and being very responsive as well. I mean, what's our frame rate? 107 frames a second. Wow, okay, so that is running way better than it would on something like the Steam Deck or the previous Ally, so that's very, very good. And this game has been optimized to work properly with a gamepad, but this is one of those ones where if I was playing this on the Steam Deck, I would probably want to use the touchpads that you have on the left and right to essentially like give yourself a mouse. It's not as good as a mouse, but it feels a lot better than joysticks are if you're going to kind of use it that way. But to be fair, I'm just being blown away by the frame rate. 100 frames a second. I think this is running at the low preset. Yeah, everything's set to low, so we could up this actually. I was going to say set this to medium, but the trackpad's not working. So we have to use the touch screen. The experience is going to vary depending on the games that you play, how you want to play, where you're going to play, obviously whether you've got AC power or not, because this has got to be one of the most feature-rich devices I've seen. The only thing that I think would be a really obvious change would be to give this an OLED display, make sure that it was HDR, things like that. But clearly having the variable refresh rate is actually way more important than the OLED technology, assuming you get a panel that is rich, is vibrant, and otherwise looks excellent, because that is absolutely the case here, and it's just so smooth. You've not got any form of tearing, not really any stutter or anything in this. There's like the occasional jolt, but yeah, this is running just as good as it would on a PC actually. And as I say, this is not as easy to run as the older generation games. I mean, the text is still a little bit small, but obviously you can change that in the settings as well. But then actually I think the last thing I want to do before we wrap this up is just to see the sleep behavior, because this is one of the other things with Windows handhelds that really has not worked very well in the past. This really does need to be tightened up to make for the ultimate handheld experience. And then let's see what happens when we turn this on. Is it going to go back into the game? Well, it says no internet connection. Oh, but no, there it is. Look, we are back. And this is a Steam game, of course, as well. This is not one of the, I say native, but you know, the more native Xbox Game Pass, Xbox PC games. So, okay, that did seem to work quite well there. Can't really complain with that. Only other thing I want to do before wrapping this up is obviously just to give you your comparison in terms of size with the Steam Deck. You can see actually in terms of ergonomics, it's slightly smaller, but the main thing, we'll flip these around, is just how much more curve there is to the controller portion, or like the controller grips, I suppose, on the back. Because I've found that the Steam Deck has just always been a little bit bulky. I kind of want this to be curved off more, and I'd rather that they swapped the buttons round. I'm not sure how that would actually work for ergonomics, but I've always found personally these just to be a little bit out of the way. I'd rather that they were there. Whereas with this, it just feels a bit more natural in my hand and definitely feels a lot more like an Xbox controller. But there's definitely a difference in terms of weight and distribution and things. But for whatever reason, this definitely feels nicer in the hand, a lot more like a polished product, whereas the Steam Deck has always just been a little bit of a slab, and I've been very much anxiously awaiting for them to do a full redesign. Would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this though. What do you think of the ROG Xbox Ally X? Is the name stupid? Do you agree with me that the flexibility of this thing is awesome? The improvements that they've actually made to that Windows mode. Okay, the Windows mode isn't working at the moment. It's still buggy. It's still new. You sleep your game. The game was running, but the Windows bit got confused. I knew something would go a little bit awry. Anyway, smash the like button if you enjoyed this, get yourself subscribed, and let me know what you want to see in the full review of this. But as I say, smash the like button if you've enjoyed this, get yourself subscribed, and if you are interested in current pricing on anything that was featured in this video, you can find it listed down below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.